I, 26F, never thought I'd be writing something like this. I need to get this off my chest and maybe get some advice. I've been with my boyfriend Tom, 26M, for 3 years now. We met in grad school when we were both pursuing our masters in marketing at State University. The program was intense and competitive, with only 30 students in our batch. Tom was the quiet guy who always sat in the back of the class, and I was the overachiever who answered every question. I still remember how we got together. We were paired up for a group project in our digital marketing class. I was annoyed at first because Tom had a reputation for being a slacker. But during our first meeting at the library, he surprised me with how knowledgeable and hardworking he actually was. He just didn't like speaking up in class. We ended up getting an A on that project and started dating shortly after. After dating for 6 months, we moved in together. It wasn't some romantic decision. Our leases were ending around the same time, and with rent prices skyrocketing in our city, it made financial sense to split costs. We found a decent 1-bedroom apartment in a quiet neighborhood, about 20 minutes from both our workplaces. Things were great between us for the first 2.5 years. We had similar goals, wanted the same things in life, and our relationship was built on trust and communication. At least that's what I thought. We both came from traditional families who valued marriage and kids. His parents, especially his mom Tessa, were very involved in our lives. They lived just 15 minutes away and would invite us over for dinner every Sunday without fail. From the start, Tom and I had agreed that we wanted to be financially stable before taking any major life steps like marriage or kids. We both had substantial student loans to pay off. Mine was around $45,000 and his was closer to $60,000. While we weren't struggling anymore and could afford small luxuries occasionally, we weren't exactly swimming in money either. Our work setup was pretty good. Tom works from home as a digital marketing specialist for a tech company, while I go to the office 3 days a week for my job in brand management at a local firm. We had a good system going. I handled breakfast since I was up early anyway, and he took care of dinner on the days I worked late. We split all other chores 50-50. His mom Tessa would often drop by unannounced with homemade meals or groceries, saying she was in the neighborhood. Looking back, I should have seen how she was trying to insert herself more and more into our lives. Everything changed about 2 months ago. Tom started acting weird about using protection during intimacy. Now, I've been on birth control pills for years, the same brand that's worked well for me without any side effects. But we always use condoms as extra protection because neither of us wanted to risk an accidental pregnancy. He started making excuses about how they reduced sensation or how we didn't really need them since I was on the pill. When I insisted, he would get moody and sometimes even refuse intimacy altogether. Then came the increasing comments from his family. During Sunday dinners, Tessa kept bringing up babies. It started subtly. She would mention how her friend's daughter just had a baby and how fulfilling it was to be a grandmother. Then she started showing us the nursery she was thinking of setting up in their spare room. She even bought a crib during a too good to pass up sale. At the time, I thought it was strange but brushed it off as typical eager mother-in-law behavior. Last week, I couldn't find my birth control pills in the medicine cabinet. I turned the bathroom upside down looking for them but couldn't find them anywhere. When I asked Tom about it, he just shrugged and said maybe I misplaced them. I could have sworn I had at least 2 weeks' worth of pills left, but I started doubting myself. I went to the pharmacy and bought a new pack, keeping it in my work bag just to be safe. Yesterday, I came home early from work because I had a migraine. When I opened our bedroom door, I found Tom going through my work bag. At first, he tried to play it off like he was looking for some documents I had brought home from work. But when I noticed my new birth control pack in his hand, everything clicked. I confronted him right there, and he broke down and admitted everything. He had been throwing away my birth control pills because he and his mom had decided it was time for a baby. Apparently, they had been planning this for months. Tessa had been pressuring him about grandchildren, saying how all her friends were already grandmothers and how she was getting left out of their grandma club activities. The worst part? Tom had told his entire family, his parents, his sister, even his aunts and uncles, that we were actively trying for a baby. He asked them to keep it quiet because I supposedly wanted it to be a surprise announcement. That explained all the knowing looks and baby comments from his relatives. They thought I was in on it. I felt physically sick. This man who I trusted completely, who I shared my life with for 3 years, had been trying to force a pregnancy on me without my consent. He had involved his entire family in this scheme, making me look like I was the one who wanted a baby. I couldn't even look at him. I packed a bag with essentials and went to stay with my best friend Amy. I haven't told my parents yet because I know they'll be devastated. They really liked Tom. My dad would often invite him over to watch sports, and my mom was already calling him her son. They're traditional too and will probably blame themselves for not seeing through him. Tessa has been blowing up my phone with messages about how I'm overreacting and that she was just trying to help us start our family. She keeps saying things like you're not getting any younger and you'll thank me when you hold your baby. Tom's sister even messaged me saying I was being selfish for denying them a grandchild and that lots of women would be grateful to have such an involved mother-in-law. I've blocked them all for now. Tom keeps sending me emails saying he's sorry and that he just got caught up in his mom's excitement. He claims he realizes now that what he did was wrong but that we can work through this. He even suggested couples counseling, saying we shouldn't throw away 3 years over one mistake. But this wasn't one mistake. This was a calculated plan to violate my bodily autonomy. He conspired with his mother to force a major life decision on me, betrayed my trust, and tried to trick me into pregnancy. I don't think I can ever look at him the same way again, let alone trust him. Who does something like this to someone they claim to love? Update: when it's been 2 weeks since I discovered Tom's betrayal, and things have spiraled into an even bigger nightmare. After spending a few days processing everything at Amy's place, I finally worked up the courage to tell my parents what happened. I drove to their house last Sunday, and the conversation was even harder than I expected. My mom noticed something was wrong the moment I walked in. She had already been worried because I hadn't been answering her texts about the usual Sunday dinner with Tom. When I told them everything, about the birth control tampering, Tessa's involvement, and how Tom had been lying to his entire family, my dad's face turned a shade of red I'd never seen before. My father, who had spent countless weekends teaching Tom about car maintenance and treating him like a son, wanted to drive straight to their house and confront him. It took both me and my mom to calm him down. My mom just sat there crying, saying she couldn't believe someone could do this to their partner. She kept asking if she had missed any signs, if there was something she could have done differently. I had to remind her that this wasn't her fault. Tom and Tessa had fooled everyone. Last weekend, I decided it was time to get more of my stuff from the apartment. I waited until Tom's usual Saturday lunchtime with his parents, figuring the apartment would be empty. I even texted Amy to come with me just to be safe. But when we got there, guess who was waiting inside? Tessa. Apparently, she had convinced Tom to give her a spare key because she was worried about my mental state. She ambushed me the moment I walked in, starting with this rehearsed speech about how she only wanted what was best for us and how she knew I'd be a wonderful mother. She talked about how she had been praying for grandchildren and how God had told her it was time. When I tried to walk past her to get to the bedroom, she actually grabbed my arm to stop me. Then she started crying about how she had already spent thousands of dollars on baby stuff and how all her friends at church were judging her for not having grandchildren yet. She dragged me to their guest room where she had a closet full of baby clothes, toys, and equipment, tags still on everything. Some items dated back months, proving this wasn't some recent impulse but a long-planned scheme. But the real bombshell came next. Through her tears, she revealed that she had been telling everyone at their church that I was already pregnant but having complications, which was why I had moved out temporarily. She had been accepting gifts, meals, and congratulations from people for weeks. She even joined some church grandmothers group, and had been attending their meetings. I completely lost it at that point. I told her she was insane and that she needed to stop lying to people. She got defensive and angry, saying I was ungrateful and that most girls would be lucky to have a mother-in-law who cared so much about their future. That's when we heard the front door open. Tom had come home early from lunch. Instead of being horrified that his mother was in our apartment or defending me from her accusations, he just stood there like a coward while Tessa ranted about how I was destroying their family's reputation at church. He actually nodded along when she said I was being selfish and immature. I started throwing my clothes into garbage bags, just wanting to get out of there. While grabbing stuff from the office, I found something in Tom's desk that made my blood run cold, a folder hidden behind some old textbooks. Inside were printouts about how to tamper with different types of birth control pills, tips for getting pregnant quickly, and even detailed information about my company's maternity leave policy that he had no business having. This wasn't just Tom giving in to his mom's pressure. He had been actively planning this for months. There were even highlighted sections in articles about how to convince your partner they're ready for a baby, and tips for accidentally damaging condoms. I took pictures of everything with my phone before leaving. When Tom saw me doing this, he tried to grab my phone, saying I was making things bigger than they needed to be. I managed to get out of there with Amy's help and drove straight to my doctor's office. I broke down while telling her everything. She was horrified and immediately ordered a pregnancy test. Those 15 minutes waiting for the results were the longest of my life. Thank God it came back negative. She documented everything in my medical records and helped me file a report about the birth control tampering. She also recommended I get tested for STDs since who knows what else Tom might have been lying about. The situation has gotten even more complicated because Tom's family has started a smear campaign against me on social media. Tessa and Tom's sister have been posting vague messages about how I led their son on and broke promises about starting a family. Some posts even hint that I had actually been pregnant and did something to terminate it, a completely fabricated lie that has their church community up in arms. I had to deactivate my Facebook because people from their church kept messaging me about my pregnancy complications and offering to bring me meals or take me to doctor appointments. Some even showed up at my workplace. I had to explain the situation to my boss because these random women kept coming to reception asking for me. Amy is letting me stay with her until I find my own place, but I'm struggling to focus on apartment hunting with all this chaos. Tom keeps sending emails about how we can work this out, that he'll go to therapy, that he'll set boundaries with his mom. But how can I ever trust someone who is willing to violate my body and my trust in such a fundamental way? And worse, who got his entire family involved in the violation? Update 2: things have taken an even darker turn, and I'm still trying to process everything I've discovered. Remember those documents I found in Tom's desk? Well, after things calmed down a bit at my new temporary place, I decided to go through the photos I took more carefully. What I found made me physically sick. Mixed in with all the pregnancy and birth control tampering information were printouts of my personal emails and text messages, conversations with my friends, my mom, even my doctor. There were screenshots of my calendar, my period tracking app, and even my Amazon purchase history. Tom had been monitoring every aspect of my life for months. I called my friend Mike, who works in IT security, and he came over to check my devices. He found spyware on both my phone and laptop. Tom had complete access to everything: my location, messages, emails, photos, even my banking app. Mike discovered that Tom had set up automatic forwarding of all my emails to a secret account and had been logging my keystrokes to get my passwords. But here's the worst part: Mike found evidence that Tom had been sending regular updates about my cycle and daily activities to his mom. They had a shared document where they tracked my fertile windows, my moods, and even what I ate. They noted days when I seemed more receptive to baby-related conversations and planned their manipulation around these times. While all this was happening, I got an unexpected message from Jane, Tom's sister. She wanted to meet privately at a coffee shop across town, saying she had important information for me. I was hesitant at first, given how she had been part of the social media attacks against me, but something in her message seemed genuine. When we met, Jane broke down crying. She confessed that Tessa had done this before, 5 years ago, to Tom's brother's wife, Lisa. I vaguely remember Tom mentioning he had a brother who was divorced, but he always changed the subject when I asked for details. According to Jane, Tessa and her older son David had done the exact same thing to Lisa, tampering with birth control, tracking her cycles, involving the church community in their pressure campaign. Lisa discovered what was happening when she found similar tracking documents on David's computer. When she tried to expose them, the family painted her as mentally unstable. They spread rumors that she was having a nervous breakdown and needed help. Lisa's reputation was ruined in their community. She lost friends, her job, and eventually had to move to another state to escape the gossip. The family covered everything up, making it look like she had mental health issues and had abandoned her marriage. They even got their pastor involved in spreading this narrative. Jane showed me old text messages between her and Lisa, documenting everything that happened. She also revealed that Tessa was already planning to do the same thing to Jane's future partner. She found a notebook in Tessa's house filled with articles about fertility treatments and tips for helping couples conceive. There were even notes about which doctors in the area were sympathetic to their cause and might help them with their plans. This wasn't just about wanting grandchildren. Tessa had a pathological need to control her children's reproductive choices. Jane admitted she was scared of being cut off from the family like Lisa was, which was why she initially participated in the social media attacks against me. But seeing history repeat itself made her realize she needed to speak up. I hired a lawyer the next day. When I showed him everything, the spyware evidence, the tracking documents, Jane's testimony about Lisa, and the birth control tampering, he said we had a strong case for harassment and reproductive coercion. He's helping me file for a restraining order against both Tom and Tessa. The lawyer also advised me to document everything the family posts online about me, especially the false pregnancy rumors. He says we might have a case for defamation, given how their lies have impacted my professional life. Several clients at my company heard the rumors and raised concerns about working with me. Jane has agreed to testify if needed, though she's terrified of her family's reaction. She showed me recent messages where Tessa was already starting to question her loyalty because she hadn't been posting enough support for Tom online. The psychological grip this woman has on her children is frightening. I've started seeing patterns now that I missed before. How Tessa would always ask about my health and diet at Sunday dinners. How she kept pushing prenatal vitamins on me, claiming they were good for my hair. How she scheduled family events around my fertile days. They had been planning this for longer than I initially thought, probably from the moment Tom and I moved in together. Looking at all this evidence, I feel like I escaped something much worse than just reproductive coercion. This was a systematic campaign to take control of my body and my life, orchestrated by someone who views her children and their partners as nothing more than vessels for her grandchildren. Update 3: The past few months have been a roller coaster, but things are finally settling into a new normal. The restraining order was approved last week after 2 court appearances. Tom and Tessa can't come within 500 feet of me, my workplace, or my new apartment. They also can't contact me through any means, including social media or through other people. My lawyer also sent them a cease and desist letter about the lies they've been spreading. We included screenshots of their social media posts and messages from church members, showing how their false pregnancy stories had impacted my life. The threat of legal action finally made them stop their smear campaign. The truth about what happened to Lisa, Tom's former sister-in-law, came out when Jane finally spoke up at church. She told everyone how Tessa and Tom had tried to force me into pregnancy, just like Tessa and David had done to Lisa years ago. The church community was shocked, especially when Jane showed proof of her mother's manipulation. Several other women from their church have since come forward with stories about Tessa's inappropriate involvement in their family planning. One couple revealed that Tessa had offered to pay for fertility treatments behind the wife's back. Another woman said Tessa had been pressuring her teenage daughter about having kids young so Tessa could enjoy her bonus grandchildren longer. Their pastor finally got involved after multiple families complained. Tessa has been removed from her position in the church's women's ministry, and the grandmothers group she was so desperate to join has completely cut ties with her. Her reputation in their community is ruined, which seems to be affecting her more than any legal consequences. Tom moved back in with his parents after losing his job. When I reported the spyware incident to his company, they conducted an internal investigation and found he had been using company resources and time to monitor my devices. They fired him for misuse of company property and breach of their cybersecurity policies. He's been struggling to find work since then. Turns out having a restraining order against you for reproductive coercion doesn't look good on job applications. He's still trying to paint himself as a victim of his mother's manipulation, sending messages through mutual friends about how he was just trying to make his mom happy and got carried away. But those detailed plans I found, the careful tracking of my cycle, the deliberate tampering with my birth control, those weren't the actions of someone being manipulated. Those were the calculated moves of someone who thought he had the right to control my body. I've moved to Seattle for a fresh start. My company's West Coast office had an opening in the marketing department, and my boss recommended me for the position. It's a step up career-wise, and being thousands of miles away from Tom and his family gives me peace of mind. Jane is the only one from that family I still talk to occasionally. She's planning to move to California next month. After standing up to her mother at church, she says she finally feels free from Tessa's control. She's even started dating someone without telling her family. Sometimes I catch myself wondering how I missed the red flags. The constant baby talk, the surprise visits, the accidental birth control mishaps, it all seems so obvious now. But then I remember how gradually it all happened, how they took advantage of my trust and tried to normalize their behavior. The hardest part has been rebuilding my sense of security. I still check my phone and laptop regularly for spyware, and I'm extremely private about my personal information now. But I'm healing. I'm focusing on my career, making new friends in Seattle, and learning to trust my instincts again. The experience taught me that sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are capable of the worst betrayals. I'm just grateful I found out before I actually got pregnant or married into that family. Some people ask if I'll ever date again. Right now, I'm focused on rebuilding my life, and that's enough for me.